Hello, my name is Aaliyah. I'm a architectural graduate, Part 2 architectural assistant and university studio tutor for first year architecture. In this video, I wanted to share my 5 tips to help you with time management around your deadline. As a tutor, I'm exposed to sort of different ways students work and what works and what doesn't. At the moment, my students, we've just had our week before final review, and what I'm seeing at the moment is people who haven't necessarily sort of done as much as they wanted to by this time, and now they're starting to worry about how they're going to get it all done. So in this video, I wanted to sort of give some tips that I sort of gave to them to sort of whoever is watching. So let's get into it. So my first tip is to read the brief, and as a tutor I sort of say this way more often than I thought I should do. It's a quick thing that you do at the start of the project. Read the brief, see what you actually have to do, what at the end do you need to deliver to sort of get those grades. I don't know about any of you who are watching how your universities work, but in the university I used to go to and now work at, the brief basically tells you exactly what to do with sort of a timeline of when you should be doing it, and then deliverables at the end, and then how you're then marked. So reading the brief is the most important thing you can do for your studio project. Now, if you're sort of at the end of your studio project, you've got a week left, like my students at the moment, and you're worrying about, do I have everything? So I'd recommend writing a list of all the things you need to do and then figuring out a plan of how to get it actually done by the deadline. So for my students, the deadline is next week. So this week our sort of tutorials were based on what we needed to get done. It was looking at all the stuff they've done and already have on their sort of presentation already, looking at the brief and seeing what else they need to get done by next week, so that they have done those tick box exercises, and then once that's all done, then they can start improving it. So tip 1 I think is one of the most important because it's very focused on making sure you have enough work to get the grades at the end. This is something that one of my students actually did, which was write a list of all the things that she needed to do on sort of her phone on notes, and then when she wanted to get it done by. And that is something that I would 100% suggest to everyone and anyone who is sort of coming up to the end of their project. Read the brief, get a list of what you need to get done, and then figure out when you need to get it done by to then have everything done by the end of the project. Now, tip 2 is making sure that you don't then get overwhelmed with how much work you need to get. I know that sort of by reading through the brief and getting a list of things that you need to get done, you might realise that actually that's quite a lot of stuff to do and I don't have that much time to do it. And with my students at the moment, I can see them getting overwhelmed. I can see sort of the stress levels rising as we're talking, and I'm sort of saying, okay, you need to do this and this, more design development, at least a few more sketch models. Where is your concept model? Where is your plan section elevation? Have you used the heliodon to check sunlight? Have you done your site strategy? Have you looked at how your project actually works? How do people around your building? What does the roof look like? How are the windows around the building? How do you get to and from your building or the toilet? Why is your storage so big? And obviously I know that that can be very overwhelming to see all the stuff that you need to do on one list. One way to not get overwhelmed is to focus on one thing at a time. So the brief for my university is sort of split into different parts. So it's split into stuff that you need to get done for your site strategy and your site information, your site report, another bit for your design development, and then another bit for your final drawings. And I would recommend, as you sort of write your list of things to do, split it into those blocks so that when you come to actually doing the work, you don't then get overwhelmed at how much you need to get done. You are focusing purely on one block at a time. So it might be, okay, today I'm going to focus on my design development, make sure that I've sort of done a few sketch models, which are just quick models to show either massing or how the building works on the site, or maybe I sort of only focus on my final plans or something like that. My third tip is to be aware of how you're being marked. In sort of my university, first year doesn't actually count to sort of your final grade at the end of your degree, but you do need to pass certain elements within the year. So if we're sort of getting down to crunch time, you've got a few days to get all your work done, made your list of the work that you need to get done, you've figured out what you need to do first, etc. Now it's time to start looking at, okay, how much time should I give to each individual part of the work that I need to get done? And again, I'm going to use one of my students as an example. So I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and they didn't have a design, they hadn't really sort of started their design development, but they were sort of looking at their site model and saying how much time they needed to spend on that. Now, as a tutor, I know that when we mark the site model, as long as you have one, that sort of tick box, okay, cool, let's look at the design development, let's look at their actual final project. If your building doesn't work but you have the most amazing site model, you're still not going to get those marks. So that tip is definitely sort of geared towards working more efficiently. Don't spend too much time on something that actually doesn't get you where you want to be at the end of the project. Focus on the thing that is going to be marked, the thing that you can put more effort into and will actually get something out of it at the end. And tip number 4 is to know how you work and know where you work best. I personally, as a student, I used to procrastinate quite a lot, and I planned how I was going to procrastinate in a way, and it was because I knew that I could get the work done, basically. So if I had an entire day to do something, so let's say I had 8 hours to do one bit of work and I knew it would only take 4 hours, I would wait until I had 4 hours to do it and then do it in that time. I'm not saying that's the best way to work. There are different ways of making that more efficient, but that was how I knew I could work, and that's the way that worked for me as a student. So my tip here is to know how you work, especially coming towards the end of a project. I wouldn't necessarily try and completely do an overhaul of how you work and who you are as a person, as a student, in that last bit. You know, at the beginning of a project, you know, find a way to be more efficient, or between projects, look back at your last project and see how you could have been more efficient and done more work, sort of produced higher quality work. But towards the end, your sort of focus should be trying to get those deliverables out to the highest quality that you can. And now looking at where you work best, I personally used to like working in the studio during the day, because then I could see where everyone else was at, make sure that I was on the right path, ask for help from my peers and see what else I needed to do, basically. And then during the evenings, I would prefer to work at home because there would be no distractions. I could just really focus on one bit of work. I know that some of my students, they do that as well. So they'll come to their tutorial in the morning and then they'll say that they're going to go home, look at everything that we've talked about during our tutorial, and then sometimes they might come back afterwards just to make sure they're on the right track in the afternoon. Other times they'll sort of be really engrossed in their work and can just continue on. For me, that's completely fine. I just want to make sure that you're getting the work done. If you need to work at home, then do that. If you need to be in the library, so a quiet area, but you're still surrounded by people, then you do that. So it's just about being self-aware of how you work best. And tip 5, this one I think might be the most controversial, because it's something that I was actually consistently told not to do by sort of tutors as a student, but actually worked for me really well, and it's to have other things to do. It's to have other commitments, and I say that from experience of having sort of part-time jobs throughout my university degrees. It really helped me to have something else that was going on so that I could then plan my day around it. So during my master's degree, I had a part-time job at the university student union. So I had 4-hour shifts, and that was great because it meant that I couldn't procrastinate as much, and I had to sort of pick when I had to procrastinate or when I wanted to procrastinate throughout the day. So if I had a 4-hour shift right bang in the middle of the day, I couldn't then leave all of my work until the end of the day when I only had 2 hours left to actually do work. So I had to sort of do some work in the morning. I then sort of thought about my sort of projects and everything wherever I could during work, and then I knew I had to then do more work afterwards. Now this video is about how to sort of manage your time towards a deadline. So obviously you're not going to be able to sort of look for and get a new job within that time. However, you can figure out ways to sort of block out time for things that you want to do so that the things you need to do can sort of need to be worked around it. You can take different things from this. So perhaps it's planning a lunch date or meeting up with someone in the library for something or something like that. Something that sort of blocks out a set of time for you throughout the day, which means that you can't slowly do your work throughout that time. I'm doing something for 4 hours, which means I might have only 5 hours to get all of this work done, which for me worked in a way that I had to get that work done in that time. So yeah, those are my 5 tips to sort of help you around this time. I really hope it's been helpful for you. I've tried to make it as short as possible so that you can sort of watch it and then get straight back to work. So in summary, read the brief, figure out what you need to do, try not to get overwhelmed with how much you need to do, be aware of how you're marked and how everything is weighted so that you're not spending too much time on something that isn't actually marked at all. Know how you work and where you work best to make sure that you're using your time as efficiently as possible, and experiment with having other commitments and other things you need to do as a way to time block your day to ensure that you limit your procrastination where you can. So thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.